Okay, but last week you were in Stellenbosch, and what were you doing there in the Western Cape?
Drinking wine, among other things, and meeting good people. It was one of the highlights on the calendar of the Suid-Afrikaanse Akademie van Wetenskap in Kuns. So let's just call it the SA Akademie, of which I serve on its council. So we started off with obviously our council meeting, and then annual general meeting. And then annually we have a symposium. And what is really special about Akademie symposiums is that it's a broad theme that brings both humanities and natural sciences together. So it's always quite a bit of a challenge to find an overarching theme that everyone could come to. And then everyone has to work with it very creatively from whichever discipline they come from. So it's always great to have also an audience that's mixed between humanities and social sciences and natural sciences and engineering, etc., and how we, have all these very interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary perspectives on someone's work. So always something to enjoy. And then, of course, the part of the purpose of the Akademie is the advancements of Afrikaans as an academic language. So it's very often quite a challenge for speakers because just about all of us work in English these days, but the papers are delivered in Afrikaans. So you often see how people are grasping for terminology. And that is precisely the point, because by being forced to present in Afrikaans, you are forced to think through what the terminologies are going to be, and by establishing that, then we continue to establish or to maintain the Afrikaans as an academic language. And of course, then it always ends with the annual award ceremony. And because the Akademie, it is an academy in the same way that think of the British Academy or the French Academy and many of them academies of letters. Ours is an academy of letters, of arts, but also of sciences. And especially in terms of our literary prizes, ours are still considered the most prestigious prizes to be won in Afrikaans.
Let's disaggregate that and let's wait for the suspense of the announcement. But I'm interested in the sort of agenda of the Academy. So in terms of the planning forward, what sort of activities would you be engaging in between now and the next meeting?
Oh, we are actually going through quite a massive transitional phase, which we discussed with our members at our annual general meeting as well. So here's the reality is Afrikaans as an academic language, of course, cannot occupy the same position of privilege as it used to in the past, but that is not to say that it should just disappear entirely. So we are constantly looking at new spaces to continue practicing research in Afrikaans, but in relation to the wider South African context. But that means that we actually have to revise our foundational documents, because this academy was established in 1909 in a very different time. That was before Afrikaans was an official language. There were not even spelling. There wasn't even a dictionary. There were no rules in terms of the spelling or the grammar. And the academy was established to establish those. So our very first style guide, if you want to call it that, or language grammar, spelling and grammar guide was published in 1917. And then from there on, when Afrikaans becomes an official language in 1925, then the language takes up a privileged position. And so does the Akademie along with it. That's not where we are today, but now we've got outdated documentation. So we are currently revising our documents, or our constitution, essentially. It's gone out to our members for comment, and we will be receiving the comments in the next few months and working through all of them, taking them on board, taking it back to our members with the idea that the amendments will be all made within the next year. Now, the direction we are heading in, very importantly, is a wider view of what Afrikaans entails. Before, the focus was on what we call today standard Afrikaans or standardized Afrikaans, but essentially the kind of Afrikaans spoken by people who look like me. So we're talking about white middle-class Afrikaans, actually. And the reality is that 60% of Afrikaans speakers are coloured. In Afrikaans, we don't actually like to use the word coloured. It's become quite loaded, so we prefer to rather speak of our brown speakers of Afrikaans. So brown speakers of Afrikaans are 60%, but then also you have various dialects, as people would call it, but in Afrikaans, again, we're a bit... We do have the same direct translation for the word dialect. It translates as dialect, and we choose not to use it. We choose to use the word variëteit, which means the various varieties of Afrikaans. And in that regard, you actually have quite a lot of regional varieties. The most prominent at the moment, that of the Cape Flats, which is called Kaaps. But I mean, go to the Winelands and Afrikaans sounds differently there, and go to the Oeverberg and it sounds differently there, or around the Orange River or Namakwaland, and so it goes on. And the point is to give equal acknowledgement to the varieties. We do continue to maintain the rules of the standard language, which is needed for writing, publication, formal communications, but we are widening and expanding. The idea is also that our membership should reflect Afrikaans as speakers. Before, the only way to become a member of the Academy was if 2 existing members proposed your membership, and then the application would have to then be reviewed, and then you would be admitted. That has changed in the past 3 years, in which anyone can now apply for membership of the Akademie. Also, Tula, we would love to have you. It's not limited to Afrikaans speakers. It's really about people who use Afrikaans in one way or another, or are engaged with it in one way or another. So historians, for example, we need to use Afrikaans in order to access the archives. And as long as that is part of our research landscape, then Afrikaans remains part of the research landscape. So it's that, and then at the same time, it's about funding postgraduate studies. We fund research, we fund publications, and we are now investigating a massive project to establish an archive for Afrikaans and to expand the reach, or let's say to pay attention to the skills of heritage practitioners and archivists, because we do have a shortage of that. So we can't sell it as done as yet, but that is actually where we are heading. And then using that as a basis for accessibility and training for all South Africans and all South African languages. So very much as Afrikaans as the launch pad, but into a multicultural environment.
Awesome. Okay. And I cut you off when you were getting to the drum roll part about the winner and the winners are, or the winners were.
So that was big. We gave out 2 prizes. So we have a variety of prizes, and it was a joy to award them. So I got to play Master of Ceremony, and I got to dress up. Prizes for school children, for poetry and for prose. So there was a prize for a young man from, I think he's from the Northern Cape, who wrote, the winning poem. And then, the winning poem came from Afrikaans Hoor in Pretoria, and then the winning piece of prose came from the Northern Cape. We gave prizes to the top student in natural sciences. We gave further awards to lifetime achievement awards in arts to a very well-known Afrikaans, a couple of actors, husband and wife actors, and I grew up watching TV programs in which they starred. Prize for the best script for an Afrikaans drama or film, and a number of awards for everything from climatology to food science, to water, agricultural sciences, etc. And then, of course, the big ones are the literary awards, because, again, our awards, which are judged by our various academic commissions, are considered the most prestigious in Afrikaans. So there was the Protea Boekhuis Award that went to it rotates, and this year it was for the best work of history in Afrikaans written over the past 3 years. It's an alumna from the University of Pretoria who received it, Eunice Visser, who wrote a massive block of a book on the Cape Slaves. It's a cultural history of Cape slavery. And she has swept every non-fiction award in Afrikaans so far. This is her 4th one. So she did very well with that particular book.
Just to cut you short there, so we're going to go to the next one, but you mentioned it's a rotating award. Rotating between what and whom and where and what?
So the Protea Bookcase Prize rotates every 3 years. It rotates between the best master's dissertation in Afrikaans, the best PhD thesis in Afrikaans, and then the best public history publication in Afrikaans. So at all times we work with a 3-year prop.
So the next winner next year will be not a book, but
masters. So
understood.
So it's always masters, PhD book. So next year, anyone who has a brilliant student who had received a cum laude for their masters in Afrikaans is welcome to enter them. And the prize will be judged by the History Commission, of which I am the chair. The literary awards are judged by our Literary Commission. And as I said, most prestigious awards in Afrikaans. There were 2 awards, one for children's literature, one for youth literature. Then the 2 big ones, the Eugene Marais Prize for debut work, and it was given to Garia Fredericks, and the book is called Een Voet in die Kaber. It was written in Cape Muslim Afrikaans. So not the first time that we've given an award to a book written not in the standard Afrikaans, but in one of the varieties. And this one in particular having a very, very strong Muslim slant. And of course, the top one, which we save for the end of the evening. So I was boasting to everyone that I at least got to call the Hertzog Prize winner to the stage. That is our top one. And that went to Eben Venter for the book Decima. Decima was, Eben wrote it in both English and Afrikaans, so did the translation himself. So that book is open to anyone to read. And it is essentially a piece of eco-literature written from the perspective of a rhinoceros, and touches on themes such as poaching, environmentalism, relationship between people, animals, etc. So very, very big evening, and yes, a lot of joy in celebrating people who had done their best. This was the pinnacle of many careers.
And did you all disband after the evening, or are there events after the event as far as that is concerned, or is the awards ceremony the great departure point?
So let's just say that when the evening ended, there was still a lot of very fine MCC available. And then when we realized that it's 11 o'clock, we decided to hit the streets of Stellenbosch. Much to my disappointment in Stellenbosch, please take note, all of a sudden, restaurants are closed at that time in the evening. What happened, Stellenbosch? Please do explain. Of course, I needed food, and an ex-student of mine and his partner ended up at the BP Garage in Dorp Street, which really sells very good garage pies. So it was wonderful to end my evening, to go from glitz and glam to changing into jeans and tackies and thoroughly enjoying a BP garage pie. I regard this as a sign of how balanced my life is.